Elizabeth Jane was in her room one day, reading her grammar books, trying hard to improve her mind, so as to be the lady she appeared. She knew how unfinished she was, knowing no languages and little about history and geography, and the things that young ladies should have been taught. She looked out from her window and saw Henchard and Farfrae in the hay yard talking. One could see quite clearly how friendly they were, and yet the seed that was to destroy this friendship was at that moment beginning to grow. It was about 6 o'clock. The men who worked for Henchard were going home one by one. The last to leave was a thin, round shouldered young man of 19 or 20, whose mouth was always falling upon. Whenever anyone spoke to him, Henchard called to him as he went out of the gate. "Here, Abel Whittle!" Whittle turned and ran back a few steps. "Yes, sir," he said in a breathless, frightened way. "Once more, be on time tomorrow morning," said Henchard sternly. "You see what's to be done, and you hear what I say, and you know I'll not put up with it any longer." "Yes, sir," said Abel, his mouth hanging open unhappily, and he left. Henchard and Farfrae left too, and Elizabeth Jane did not see them again that day. Now there was a good reason for Henchard's order. Poor Abel, as he was called, was always coming late to work. For 2 mornings in the present week he had kept the other man waiting nearly an hour. This was why Henchard threatened him. It now remained to be seen what would happen. 6 o'clock struck the following morning, and there was no Abel Whittle. At 6:30, Henchard entered the yard. The wagon that Abel was going to drive was ready with its horse, and the other man who was going with him and had been waiting 20 minutes. Then Abel came rushing up, breathless, and stopped in front of Henchard. The corn merchant turned on him angrily. "Tomorrow," roared Henchard, "the wagon must start at 4, so make sure you are here on time. If you are late, I will come and drag you out of bed myself." The journey to be taken by the wagons next day was a long one, and at 4 o'clock people with lamps were moving about in the yard. But Abel was missing. Before any of the other men could run to Abel's lodging and warn him, Henchard appeared in the doorway. "Where's Abel Whittle? Not come after all I have said. Now I'll carry out my word. Nothing else will do him any good." Henchard went off and entered Abel's house, a little cottage down a back lane, the door of which was never locked because the occupants had nothing to lose. Reaching Whittle's bedside, the corn merchant shouted out his name so loudly that Abel jumped up, terrified. His arms jerked about in fear, and his jaw hung down helplessly. Out of bed, "Sir, down to work this minute, or you'll not work for me again. This is to teach you a lesson. March on, there's no time for your breeches." The unhappy Whittle threw on his waistcoat and managed to get into his boots at the bottom of the stairs, and Henchard pushed his hat on his head. Whittle then ran terrified in front of the stunned Henchard all the way back to the hay yard. Just at that moment, Farfrae came into the yard. He saw something white moving about in the morning gloom, which he shortly realized was part of Abel's shirt showing beneath his waistcoat. "What is this?" said Farfrae, following Abel into the yard. Henchard was some way behind by this time. You see, Mr. Farfrae, cried Abel with a terrified smile. He said he'd teach me a lesson, and now he has. You see, I'll have to do my work now, like this, because he would not give me time to get dressed. But I shall kill myself afterward. I shall not be able to stand the disgrace. All the women will be looking out of their windows at me and laughing at me because I have no breeches. I shan't be able to stand it. Get back home and put on your breeches. You'll catch your death of cold standing there like that. Hello, hello, said Henchard, coming up behind. Who is sending him back? All the men looked towards Farfrae. I am, said Donald. I say this joke has been carried far enough. And I say it hasn't. Get up in the wagon, Whittle. Not if I am manager, said Farfrae. He either goes home or I march out of this yard for good. Henchard looked at him with a face stern and red, but he paused for a moment and their eyes met. Donald went up to him, for he saw from Henchard's look that he was beginning to regret the whole affair. Come, said Donald quietly. A man in your position should know better. Sir, it is cruel and not worthy of you. It's not cruel, murmured Henchard, like a child. It is to make him remember. Then he went on, in the tone of one bitterly hurt. Why did you speak to me like that in front of the man? Farfrae, you could have waited until we were alone. Ah, I know why. I have told you the secret of my life, and now you are taking advantage of me. That had nothing to do with it, said Farfrae simply. I had forgotten all about that. Henchard looked at the ground, said nothing more, and turned away. During the day, Farfrae learned from the man that Henchard had given Abel's old mother free coal and wood all the previous winter, which made him feel less harsh towards the corn merchant. But Henchard still continued to be moody and silent. And when one of the men asked him where some newly arrived corn should be stored, he said shortly, Ask Mr. Farfrae, his master, here. There could be no doubt about it. Henchard, who up to that time had been one of the most admired men in Casterbridge, was the most admired no longer.